And I've done a lot of retreats. I did a month solitary retreat back in 2017 in Virginia. We have a center, big center in Virginia, and it's a big layout, many acres, and they have cabins, very secluded cabins. And I did a month-long solitary retreat. So for me, my practice is I'm very used to just being on my own, you know. So my initial thought was, okay, I guess we'll be on pause until we're okay to continue. But then the Sangha, other members started texting me and requesting for us to continue on online, or are we going to do something online, you know? And I was like, oh, okay, I guess we can, you know. So that kind of, you know, like I said, my initial mindset was like, okay, I'm going to be on retreat until this is over. You know, I have a regular practice. I'm sure many of you do, so we just do it, you know. But I also, when I had those requests, I recognized as a need, as Marilyn was saying, for the Sangha to practice together, for a community, even virtually, a virtual community, you know, to have that connection. Perhaps not so much the interaction, but just I can see your faces, you can see me, we sit together, we practice together. I've been a part of different Zoom practice sessions throughout the day from our centers, and it's interesting to see. It's funny, humorous, you know. Sometimes people forget to put their mute on, and you'll hear the dog barking in the background, or the cat will walk across across the camera. So, but we just work with it. We deal with it, and everything's okay. You know, we have the space. We're practitioners, so this is what we train in. You know, this is what we prepare for, in a sense, right? How are we going to deal with every moment, just moment to moment to moment? You know, and these moments are very interesting and very strange. You know, a lot of uncertainty, fear, anxiety, all this gumbo of emotions just boiling sometimes, you know. But if we have a steady meditation practice, like I'm sure most of you do, all of you perhaps, and we can use this, you know. We have enough space. We've developed enough space. This is what we're doing when we're sitting. Sitting and just stay on the breath, Thoughts come up, just notice, you know. We're not trying to get rid of the thoughts. It's when we become distracted, when we get pulled into a story, that's when we notice, we catch it and release, catch and release, and come back to the breath. So some space develops. We have space in our everyday inaction, moving around life. You know, a difficult circumstance comes up, and we have some space. We're not so reactive. That's why I also mentioned when we're sitting, if we notice some discomfort somewhere in the body, notice, you know, the difference between reactivity and response. How quickly we want to react and change it. I don't like it like this. Change this. Change the channel. I don't like this. You know. So in the same way, in our meditation practice, just noticing when we're off of the cushion in the world, and like now, with some big event, we have some space where we can respond. We can respond to just what's needed in that moment. And I'm sure for many of us, there's moments where it does get a little claustrophobic, a little fear about what's coming next. Or employment, if some of us are working, there's the fear of that, you know, all these things. But as practitioners, we have these precious teachings, these instructions that we can apply. That's what they're for. It's a little toolbox. We have our toolbox, you know, of what we've learned, what we've studied, you know. This comes up. Oh, I can't leave my house for a month. Oh, it's temporary. You know, it's temporary. It changes. It'll change, you know. I can't leave my house to May 15th. We're already looking at May 15th rather than looking at just now. okay, what can I do just right now? Just take care of this experience, nurture this experience, and whatever is coming up, just work with it. If there's contentment, rest in that contentment. You know? Wish that contentment for others, that others may have that same contentment, that peace of mind. And what's really important is that work that we do with ourselves, when there is that contentment, that space, that stability, unshakable like a mountain, that has an effect. That has an effect on the environment, just in our room. Just if you think about just all the energies, right now there's all kinds of conversations going on, but we can't see this information flying through the air, right? Going through us, conversations happening. Doesn't mean they don't, because we can't see them, they don't exist. There is, somebody's having a phone conversation, from my next door neighbor's probably talking to somebody, so that's coming through here. You know? So how we hold our space, how we hold ourselves, that has an effect, an amazing impact on everything. You know? And we can affect those who perhaps don't have that space, haven't recognized that space yet, haven't recognized that quality of their mind of well-being and content. And our communication with them, whether it's a text, it's an email, a phone conversation, FaceTiming, Zooming, there is something happening that can benefit them. We don't necessarily have to go grocery shopping for them, or do some things that which are fine and well too. You know, that's wonderful. That's kind of our Buddhist practice in action. You know, caring for others and perhaps helping a neighbor out, going to get their groceries, mowing their lawn, getting their mail, things like that. That's good as well. But we don't have to feel helpless if we can't. It seems like we can't do anything. We are doing something just by holding space, just by resting in contentment, stability, and joy, being joyful. That's something I wanted to talk about today. I describe it as lighten up, you know, or lightening up. How do we do that? Or enlighten up even. You know? Enlighten up, for me, this really points to this quality that we all have, just this joyful quality, this happiness that's unconditioned, doesn't require a condition to have that. We can tap into that. We have that. Perhaps some of us already, practitioners who have been doing this for some time, have realized that. You know? That no matter the external circumstances, the mind can be at ease. The mind can be at ease, content, just watching the show, just how we do for 30 minutes, 40 minutes during our meditation practice. We just watch the show and we stay present. We don't get entangled in the stories of thoughts. So it is possible. You know, in the Buddhist tradition, we talk about the Four Noble Truths, and the first truth being suffering. You know? And that can be mistaken, can be misinterpreted in a certain way. You know? Even by Buddhist practitioners, people look at that and they say, "Oh, why do you guys just focus on suffering?" But it's more the suffering described more as looking at everything that's unsatisfactory, in the sense that it's bound to conditioned. It's conditioned. It's going to change. So that's where the discomfort comes from. That's where the unease, because our habit is to believe it's permanent. Our habit is to not like it when it changes, when there's change. So it's really the suffering is speaking more about just that our, then you go into the next one, the cause. So what is this cause? The cause of this the suffering is the grasping, right? The grasping, craving. So how can we alleviate this suffering? Say if you're holding on to a hot stone, and you go to a doctor and you say, this is hurting, what do I do? Let go. Let go of that hot coal, right? But the habit is so strong to hold on, hold on, hold on. So the suffering is in the grasping. The relief is in letting go. The freedom, the liberation is in letting go. And it sounds simple, but obviously, as I'm sure many of us know, as practitioners, it takes work, it takes training, it takes becoming familiar with. In Tibetan, the word for meditation is gom. And gom in Tibetan means roughly, it means to become familiar with. So for Tibetan meditation means to become familiar with. So this is what we do. Every Sunday when we sit here, every day, if we have a regular practice, we're becoming familiar again and again with things just as they are. Just as they are. Looking at thoughts, letting them be, just staying present. When we notice that we're grasping to the story, perhaps an unpleasant situation that happened in the morning and we're reliving the story, doing the rerun, watching a rerun, we just notice. That's awareness. Awareness notices that. Oh. And then what's next? The letting go. We drop it. So when Buddhists say, just let go. If there's no becoming familiar with that process of letting go, of course it's difficult because our habit is to hold on for dear life, as they say. So it doesn't have to be serious either, as practitioners, we don't have to just kind of be rigid. So I was speaking earlier with our posture, too tight. We don't want to be too tight or too loose either. We want to find a nice balance. So sure, we understand impermanence, that I won't be around forever. Our loved ones won't be around forever. Sometimes that's even difficult for people to even just talk about, right? Like my mom, I kid around with her and I just kind of make light of my own temporariness, and she doesn't like to talk about that. She wants me to change the subject. So I don't push it too much because I know she has her own relationship with me, of course, her son. But it's something to think about, that to become familiar with impermanence. You can see now what's going on now. So much fear. People are really, impermanence is right in our faces nowadays, right? Some might say we have to wear a mask. We think a mask will keep impermanence away. Maybe I should do that. I'll get a mask and I'll write impermanent on here. But, like I said, it doesn't have to be too serious. We can lighten up. We can be alive, just enjoy this aliveness and have this joy, Perhaps for some of us, it might be difficult. Like I said, maybe at this time, we've been laid off, or employment, mortgage payments, all this stuff. How are we going to deal with that? How are we going to work with that? It's challenging, of course, but there's also the space. The space where we can just breathe into it and work with the situation. Notice if we're looking ahead, how am I going to make next month's rent? Well, what's happening right now? What can we do just right now? And we breathe, rest at ease. And sometimes we discover the answer. Sometimes our mind is so cluttered with thoughts of the future, next month, the thoughts of yesterday. Oh, I should have saved more. Why did I make that? Why did I spend that last month? But all we have is right now and just what we can work with right now. And you'll be amazed. I'm sure some of you practitioners have probably discovered that when, these are just energies. It just comes up. Doesn't mean once we're been meditating for some time and practicing the Dharma, or now we're immune to all these horrors of the world, these challenges. No, it just means we see them more clearly, and we can work with them better, with clarity and stability. And as I said, I have, from my experience, discovered when I do drop the stories that are going on in my mind and just rest, doesn't mean I run to my cushion and sit. Just, I could be driving, I could be on a walk, I could be at work. Just drop the story, breathe, be present, whatever I'm doing, at work, my hands on the keyboard, it's just presence. That kind of creates some space in the mind, unclutters it. And I have, and then the answer appears. Oh, I can do this. Oh, perhaps I can do that. So yeah, I've experienced that. I'm sure perhaps some of you have too. It's like looking for your keys, you're just like, so perhaps you're late and you're running around just looking for the keys and you're complaining, barking at your wife or your husband or your kids. Where did you put my keys? Putting blame. Can't find the key. Sometimes we just kind of run out of gas and we sit and there's not too many thoughts going on, not too much blame and going around. And then it pops up, boom, oh, I know where they're at. I know where the keys are at, because the mind is now uncluttered. It's tired of just like all these stories. But it doesn't have to be like that. We don't have to go through that. We can just drop the story, let go with our practice and training of letting go again and again. We drop the story, we rest, and see what we discover. We might discover where we left our keys. And joy, as I was talking about having this joy and happiness, and some people might think, well, it's really hard right now with everything that's going on. How do you tap into that? It's possible, In the Buddhist teachings and trainings, there's many different ways to cultivate, this happiness, unconditioned happiness in the mind. Discover that this contentment, this well-being, and this joy. In this, the practices that we do to cultivate that, to unveil that, is practicing loving kindness. Practicing loving kindness, patience, generosity. And not just generosity in material things. We might think like, well, material things, well, I'm not working right now, so I don't have much, Doesn't necessarily mean that sense, Generosity could be our time. So many of you are practicing generosity this afternoon by joining me today, inviting me into your homes. I'm inviting you into my home. So that's, in a sense, that's generosity. So these states of mind we can work with to cultivate, to unveil that joy and that happiness, that contentment to have in mind. I think many of you have probably experienced that when you do help somebody in some way, and they're so grateful and happy, and afterwards there's a sense of happiness that we ourselves, right? There's a byproduct. We feel it too, right? We feel happy that we were able to help somebody, lighten somebody's load, bring some, and sometimes it's not even with words, it's just listening. Somebody's just venting to us and we're listening. That's generosity. We don't have to tell them how to fix it. We just listen. We hold the space. Generosity, patience. And so many times, I'm sure many of you have experienced that I have, where I'm thanked and I didn't feel like I did anything. I didn't say anything. And at first I remember being kind of puzzled by that, but then I realized it's just that generosity, that act of generosity, that holding the space. Our practice, as I mentioned earlier, it does have an effect. Our stability of posture, holding our posture, taking our seat, keeping the mind steady, stable. That has an effect. Doesn't need words. People feel that energy, just as people feel when we're uptight and we want them to finish so we can go do what we were going to do, Even if we don't say anything, people can read that in our body language, in our facial expression, just the energy that's coming off, So these are practices we can do to discover this joy and happiness, even in circumstances like this, where you think it's impossible. How can we find happiness and joy? And, I'm cooped up in my home for over a month, or people who are sick, who lost their lives, or holding on, But there is that possibility. As I was preparing for this talk about how discovering this joy, it made me think of Anne Frank, some of her quotes and from her writings. See if I could read some of them here. Here's someone who was obviously in a very, we could say she was in quarantine. She was in isolation for a different purpose, obviously. They were afraid of these individuals who were looking for them, were afraid of catching this invisible enemy, right? But even in that, she found this quality of joy, joyfulness, and happiness. I'll read you some of the lines here that I pasted here. At such moments, I don't think about all the misery, but about the beauty that still remains. That's amazing. That's so moving. The beauty that still remains. We could just sit, look around, look at the flowers behind me, beautiful, colored. Listen to the birds in the morning. I get up in the morning, I open up my back door while I'm making coffee. I hear these baby birds out because it's after spring. And I enjoy that. That's the beauty that still remains. See also another quote here. She says, how wonderful it is. This is one of my favorites, actually. How wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. We don't have to look, well, after this quarantine's over, then I'm going to really start doing something. I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to, do this, do that. How about now? How can we improve the world now? And like I said, it doesn't have to be like, well, I can't improve the world because I can't get out of my house. You can improve the world. You can make an effect. You can affect the world just by our presence. Even just in our room. We have an effect. Everything affects everything, you know. Just like if we have our window open and the neighbor's barbecuing and that scent comes in here, we can smell that. We're affected by that. We smell it. It might make us hungry. Another quote that she had, yeah, whoever is happy will make others happy too. I think Anne Frank was a bodhisattva, an awakened being. The bodhisattva is an awakened being. That's amazing, you know? Whoever is happy will make others happy too. Again, that speaks to our holding ourselves, how we carry ourselves in contentment, well-being, at ease, joyful. And she also says, again, think of all the beauty still left around you and be happy. We can do that, you know. We could even just be thankful that we're of good health, we're safe, we're healthy, we're at ease. We can think of our loved ones, they're safe, they're healthy, they're at ease, our neighbors, you know. Yeah. And then one last one here, speaking of generosity, she says, no one has ever become poor by giving. That's a plug for generosity there. That should be our Long Beach meditation plug. But yeah, you know, when we don't practice generosity, when we are afraid to practice generosity, whether it's giving of our time, material things, or I don't have time for them right now, you know, that's because we have a poverty mentality. We don't believe we have time now. We don't believe we have enough. I don't know if you guys saw the recent press conference with the governor from New York, where he said some farmer from, I forget where it was, wrote him, and he, in the letter, he says, I don't know if you'll receive this or not, but my name is so-and-so. He was 73. I think he had emphysema, and his wife did, but he had 5 N95 masks, and he sent the governor one for a health worker. And he said, forgive me, but I'm keeping 4 for myself, my wife, and his family. But he gave one away, you know, to someone on the other side of the country, you know. So that kind of speaks for that. Nobody has become poor by giving. You know? So we do have that capacity. All beings have that capacity. So that's a way that we can cultivate this joyful mind, this happiness, unconditioned happiness, unconditioned joyfulness, just at ease. You know? One last poem here that I'll read before I open it up to any comments or questions that we have. This is by a poem by A.R. Ammons. He says, the quickest way to change the world is to like it the way it is. And that poem's called Old Geezer. And I'm kind of looking like an old geezer lately, this big beard. So yeah, I encourage you to really explore that. You know, now is a perfect time with everything that's going on, just to bring it to, we say, bring it to the path. We bring it to the path. That is the path. And see if we can tap into that, unveil that joyful mind, that happy, content, at ease mind. It's just a little bit covered up. It's like the sun, you know. There's days where it's cloudy. You don't see the sun for days. Doesn't mean it's gone. It's still there. We just can't see it because it's veiled, the conditions, the clouds. And then a few days later, the sun comes out. So the same thing with us, you know. Sometimes it's cloudy. We're dealing with things, but we can realize that the sun is there. This quality of mind, is untainted quality of mind is there. It's just the conditions.